Okay, a very brief video here, hopefully just covering the last tiny little Math 053 topic that we didn't get to in class. This is section 6.6, just a quick overview of it. Um, and it's actually something really that we've already done, technically speaking, so just sort of a review of that. So polynomial has multiple terms and a monomial has one term. So here we want to talk about dividing a polynomial by a monomial. That means the thing on the top has more than one term, but the thing on the bottom only has one term. What if the thing on the bottom has more than one term? Well, just wait for 07 level math courses for that. So all you got to do for this is the same. We're just reversing the process of adding fractions. Remember, when you add fractions, you get a common denominator, and then you put the fractions all together over that denominator. We're just going to turn this around. So we're going to say 6x squared plus 18 over 6 means we can just separate that out, each separate one over 6. So let's look at that first one, 6x squared over 6. Well, the 6's cancel, and we're just left with x squared. And 18 over 6 is 3. That's a nice, easy one to start off with. So let's look at this next one. Same thing. We got 3 terms on the top. So we're going to separate out all 3 terms and divide them by 5 separately. Give you a minute to try that. Okay, so let's take a look here. In the first term, 10q squared divided by 5. 10 divided by 5 is 2. And then there's a q squared with it. Minus 30q divided by 5. 30 divided by 5 is 6. Then there's a q with it. Plus 45 divided by 5 is 9. So just like that. Now let's take a look at this third one. A couple different things are happening. One is we also have a variable on the bottom, which is okay. That just means we do some variable canceling as needed. And also I made the first term negative here. Now I'm going to recommend you take that negative and put it out front. You have a negative term, a positive term, and a negative term, right? If you don't like that, take a look at these other ones. It's exactly the same thing we did here. We had a positive term and a positive term, right, in this first one. And as a result, we had a positive term. We're just too lazy to write the plus sign, and a positive term. Here we had a positive term, a negative term, and a positive term. We're just too lazy to write the plus. That resulted in a positive term. There's a plus sign way out front of the fraction here, a negative term, and a positive term. Here we have a negative, a positive, and a negative, so we end up with a negative, a positive, and a negative. And I think that will make things easier overall. Let's see now. So the first term is negative. 12 divided by 4 is 3. X cubed divided by x is x squared. Remember, that's 3 minus 1, and there's more x's on the top, so we end up with x squared on the top. Plus 20 divided by 4 is 5. X squared divided by x is just x. Minus, oh, look at that last one. Everything cancels out, which doesn't mean nothing is left behind. It means 1 is left behind. So there's a few starting examples. Now, if they write the division with a division sign, just rewrite it with a fraction sign. Why don't you try that one? Okay, so again, we see they wrote this with a divided by sign, but we just rewrite it as the same thing with a fraction. And let's separate those out now. So we got 2 terms on the top, 1 on the bottom. We separate them into 2 separate pieces. And now let's go bit by bit. 21 divided by 7 is 3. B cubed over b squared is b. Minus 35 over 7. 35 divided by 7 is 5. And b squareds just cancel with each other, leaving 1. 5 times 1 is 5, which obviously we don't need to write. Also, what happens if the bottom is negative? Well, there's various ways you could do it. Here's my suggestion. That start out the same. Separate all the different pieces over -2. But what that negative is going to do is it's going to think about it. If you divide by a negative, it flips the sign. It makes anything that's positive negative, and anything that's negative, positive. So I would recommend, instead of trying to hammer through, oh, I'm dividing by -2 here and this and that, I would just say very quickly, say, okay, that first positive term is going to become negative. The second negative term is going to become positive, negative, positive. If you're wondering why did all your 2's turn into positive 2's, because I took the negative out front, and I just recognized the fact that all that negative sign is going to do is change the positive terms to a negative and the negative terms to a positive. Now, once you do that, it's just like the other questions. So we have a negative. 6 divided by 2 is 3, and the m-5th is just there. Plus 4 divided by 2 is 2, and the m-cubed is there. Minus 10 divided by 2 is 5, and the m is there. Plus 14 divided by 2 is 7, like so. Okay, so if your bottom is negative, just simply all that happens is it changes every term to the opposite sign as it was before, and the bottoms become positive, then you can carry on as normal. Give that one a try. Okay, so we have separated that out. There's 2 terms on the top and 1 on the bottom, so we've separated them as so. Oh, look at, we have negatives on the bottom. What's that going to do? Well, I'm going to turn those into positives and flip the negative term to a positive term and the positive term to a negative term. That's how I deal with the negatives on the bottom. I just recognize that will change the sign of the whole term. Piece by piece, just take it little. Don't get overwhelmed by looking at that big question. 40 divided by 8, 5. U cubed over u cubed, well, that just cancels, so there's nothing to write there. It's a times 1 technically, but we don't need to write that. V to the 5th over v to the 1 is v to the 4th. Minus 24 divided by 8, 3. U to the 7th over u cubed, that leaves u to the 4th on the top. V to the 4th over v to the 1 leaves v cubed on the top, like so. That would be my recommendation for how to tackle that one. Oh, and then we don't need that there. There's that plus sign we wrote out front, but of course, that particular plus sign we don't need to write in our final answer. Okay, last little twist is, in all the ones so far, we've been able to divide out the entire bottom. That might not always happen. You might still have a fraction, and there's nothing wrong with that. So we got 4 terms on the top. Let's separate them all out, each one of them separately over 6g. Piece by piece, 12 divided by 6, 2. G cubed over g to the 1 leaves g squared on top. Minus 18 divided by 6, 3. G squared over g to the 1, g to the 1, which we just write g for. Minus, now things change. 9 over 6. Well, 6 doesn't divide evenly into 9, but that's okay. We can still reduce that fraction. 9 divided by 6 reduces to 3 over 2. And the g's cancel completely. Last term, 24 divided by 6 is 4. What about that g? Well, it's just stuck there, nothing to cancel, so it just stays there, and there's nothing wrong with that. Okay? So if you're left with stuff on the bottom, just stays on the bottom. Also, if any of these fractions had not canceled at all, like this 18 over 6, what if that was 17 over 6? That would just stay 17 over 6. Nothing to do with it, right? If it's a fraction you can reduce, great. 18 over 6 is 3 over 1 technically, but we just write 3. If it was 17 over 6, it would just stay 17 over 6. Just like this 3 over 2 stayed 3 over 2. We can't take that any further.